The old workshop lamp hung low, casting a golden haze through drifting dust, spilling light across cluttered walls lined with tools darkened by grease and years of use. In the center of the cramped space, Orvin Calith leaned close over a hulking metal figure. His hands, rough, steady, and precise, guided a screwdriver with practiced patience, fastening a tiny bolt in the android's fractured chest plate. His eyes gleamed with total concentration, as if nothing beyond this workbench truly existed. Sitting nearby on a short wooden stool was Naira Solen. The small girl, with skin that shimmered in pale blue tones, watched every motion intently. Her wide eyes were luminous, almost too large for her delicate face, framed by silvery aqua hair that caught the lamplight in gentle ripples. Her pointed ears twitched slightly whenever metal scraped against metal, as though every sound resonated inside her. She sat still, hands folded neatly on her lap, absorbing every detail like a pupil unwilling to miss a single lesson. On the table before them lay the body of Elian, a battered combat android. Its chest was torn open, exposing a tangled weave of red-glowing fiber cables that pulsed faintly, reminiscent of veins carrying some synthetic lifeblood. One half of its face was dented and scarred, revealing raw titanium beneath. It might have seemed like nothing more than a broken machine, but the stillness carried a weight, an illusion that it was simply sleeping. Orvin exhaled slowly, wiping sweat from his brow, then spoke in a low, gravelly tone. "We're close, Naira. Once I reattach the drive core and patch the memory channels, Elian should be able to function again." Naira tilted her head, her voice soft and lilting, each word stretched by a faint musical cadence. "Do you think it will remember who it is?" Orvin hesitated. He had heard countless stories about androids like this. Soulless weapons programmed only for obedience and violence. Yet when he discovered Elian buried beneath the ruins outside the city's edge, he'd found something unusual. Its memory core hadn't been completely wiped. Fragments still lingered, faint but undeniable, like stars flickering in a drowned sky. "Maybe," he said at last, careful with his words. "But whatever's left in there could be dangerous. And that's exactly why we need to uncover it." Silence settled over the room, broken only by the faint crackle of current humming through open circuits. Orvin tightened another bolt, spliced two charred wires together, then carefully reached for the central processor housing. The moment his hand brushed against the interface, a sudden flare of blue light surged through the body. Naira gasped, nearly falling from her stool. Elian shuddered, its frame vibrating with a deep, resonant hum. The machine's half-broken eyelids twitched, then opened, revealing lenses glowing faintly blue. The light flickered weakly, unstable, like a lantern struggling in the wind. Orvin froze, tools still in his hand, while Naira clutched the edge of the table, holding her breath. "Boot sequence," the voice rasped, mechanical and fragmented. "System error, authentication failed." Orvin immediately switched to a side console, fingers flying over the keys to stabilize the reboot. Naira whispered without realizing, her words carrying an eerie certainty. "It hurts." Orvin glanced at her sharply. He had long suspected that Naira's strange sensitivity wasn't mere imagination. Somehow, she could feel the state of machines, their rhythm, their strain, as though she shared a hidden language with them. And disturbingly often, she was right. He entered a final sequence. The light in Elian's eyes steadied. Slowly its fingers twitched, each joint clicking faintly. Its head turned slightly toward Orvin, then to Naira, the lenses glimmering with faint recognition. "Identity, query," the android said, voice stronger now though still mechanical. Orvin leaned closer. "Do you remember anything? A place you were? What you were built for?" For several moments, only silence. Then came a surge of disjointed sounds flooding from the processor, metallic clangs, faint screams echoing in the distance, the wail of alarms. Naira clutched her ears, face tightening in pain as if the memories spilled directly into her mind. Orvin quickly cut the signal feed, fearful the overload might fry what was left of the core. "Enough," he muttered, steadying his breath. "Slow down. We'll get there." Elian stilled, then nodded faintly, the gesture oddly human. After a pause, its voice lowered, softer than before. There was a place. A colony. And then darkness. Orvin exchanged a look with Naira. The girl's small frame trembled, but her bright eyes shone with determination, as though she sensed the importance of what had been spoken. Before Orvin could ask more, a sudden metallic thump echoed outside the workshop door. He froze, instantly pulling a thick canvas sheet over Elian's body. The lamp dimmed as he twisted the dial, leaving only a faint glow. Heavy footsteps approached, then halted, silence pressing against the walls. Orvin gripped a wrench tightly in his fist, lowering his voice to a whisper. No one can know Elian is active. If the technocrats find out, we're finished. Naira nodded quickly, her pointed ears twitching nervously. Even in the half-darkness, her wide sapphire eyes glimmered like polished stones, reflecting both fear and quiet resolve. Beneath the canvas, Elian's systems hummed faintly, an artificial heartbeat beginning again, fragile yet undeniable. It was the sound of something awakening, and none of them could guess what path it would lead them toward. The city outside never truly slept. Neon banners shimmered against the dark spires, and mechanical drones buzzed like restless insects along the avenues. But in Orvin's workshop, time seemed to hold its breath. The hum beneath the canvas cover reminded him that danger now lay inside his walls, danger, and perhaps answers. Hours passed in silence after the footsteps faded. Orvin didn't risk uncovering Elian until he was certain the street outside was empty. At last he pulled the heavy cloth aside, revealing the android's motionless form. Its eyes glowed dimly, no longer erratic, steady as if it awaited instruction. Naira leaned closer, whispering with childlike curiosity. It's listening. Even if it doesn't speak, it hears us. Orvin gave a weary half-smile. Then let's give it something worth hearing. He adjusted the stabilizers, linking a cracked console into the android's neuromatrix. A sequence of corrupted files filled the screen. Thousands of fragmented images, lines of code twisted into gibberish, and encrypted partitions locked behind high-grade firewalls. These weren't the ordinary data clusters of a soldier machine. This was something deeper. Whoever tried to wipe you, Orvin muttered, scanning the chaos of symbols, didn't want just memories gone. They wanted a cover-up. Naira's small hands rested gently on the edge of the android's arm. I can help, she said softly. Orvin hesitated. He had seen what happened when Naira touched machines. She could calm them, sometimes even make them respond as though alive. But there was risk too, feedback surges that could leave her shaken for hours. Still, the determination in her gaze left him little choice. Only for a moment, he warned. Naira pressed her palm against the cold plating of Elian's shoulder. Her breathing slowed, her pupils widened, and for an instant the flicker of blue in her veins brightened like faint starlight beneath her skin. The console whirred, streams of locked code unraveling into brief flashes of clarity. Images burst across the monitor. A colony built beneath glass domes, its towers curved like shells, reflecting the stars. Crowds scattering as armored drones descended, weapons firing without mercy. A shadowed figure watching from a high dais, face obscured behind a crystalline mask. Naira gasped, pulling her hand away. It's buried. Someone forced it down, like locking a voice in a box. Orvin's jaw tightened. He recognized the insignia burned into one of the drone wings, an emblem of the Technarch Council, the ruling technocrats of the Spire cities. They had long whispered about failed colonies, settlements that simply vanished without explanation. If Elian had seen what really happened, its memory was a direct threat to the Council's iron grip. He leaned close to the android. Do you know who gave you orders? Elian's eyes flickered, voice slow, almost reluctant. Designation erased. But I remember resistance. They begged for mercy. We were told there was no surrender. Naira's voice trembled. They destroyed them. The workshop felt suddenly too small, walls pressing in with the weight of what they had uncovered. Orvin switched off the console and paced the floor, mind racing. Possessing evidence against the council was a death sentence, yet letting it slip away would mean condemning others to silence forever. Naira followed him with her eyes, speaking in a tone far older than her years. We can't keep it hidden. People should know. Orvin shook his head sharply. And what happens when the enforcers come looking? They'll erase us all. You don't understand, Naira. The council doesn't forgive, and it doesn't forget. Before she could reply, Elian stirred, sitting upright with slow, deliberate motion. The workbench groaned under its weight. Its gaze moved between them, something new glimmering in those synthetic eyes, not merely function, but intent. You repaired me, it said. The words carried no warmth, yet there was a flicker of recognition. Therefore I owe you. Orvin frowned. You don't owe me anything. But you carry something dangerous inside, and that makes you a target. If you stay here, they'll come for both of us. Naira slipped from her stool, her small voice cutting through the tension. Then we run. Orvin turned toward her in disbelief. Run? With an android soldier at our side? You have no idea how fast the council will track us. Elian's head tilted slightly. Correction. Probability of detection high. But not immediate. Escape is possible. The words hung heavy in the air. Orvin rubbed his temples, fighting the storm in his mind. Every instinct told him to dismantle the android and bury the parts where no one could ever find them. But then he remembered the images. Domes in flames, people begging, masked figures ordering their deaths. The council had rewritten history to erase it. If those truths could be shown, maybe the iron silence could finally be broken. He looked at Naira, at her unwavering gaze, her belief stronger than his doubts. Then at Elian, this machine haunted by fragments of its own deeds. The choice was already pulling at him, even as fear gnawed at his gut. We'll need supplies, Orvin muttered. And if we move, we do it carefully. No noise, no trail. Naira smiled faintly, relief softening her face. Elian inclined its head, acknowledging silently. But far above, in the glittering spires of the council, signals were already moving. Somewhere in a surveillance hub, a red light blinked to life, registering the android's reactivation. Cold voices in a chamber of steel took note, and quiet orders spread outward. The hunt had begun. Rain slicked the neon streets, turning puddles into mirrors that reflected the towering spires above. The city's outer districts, once industrial strongholds, were now a labyrinth of decay, filled with broken scaffolds and half-collapsed rooftops. It was here that Orvin Kalith, Naira Solen, and the android Elian moved quickly, slipping between shadows, their breaths and footsteps lost beneath the hiss of falling water. They had left the workshop behind only hours ago, but already Orvin's instincts screamed that they were being watched. Enforcers of the Technarch Council were relentless, and if Elian's reactivation had been detected, it was only a matter of time before their pursuers closed in. Naira clung to Orvin's coat as they hurried through a narrow alley. It's close, she whispered. I can feel them. Orvin glanced down at her, worry knotting in his chest. Naira's strange sense for machines had saved them before, but it also frightened him. She could sense more than gears and circuits, she could feel intent, hostility, the pulse of danger itself. We'll find shelter, Orvin muttered, forcing calm into his voice. Somewhere they won't expect. Elian moved silently behind them, every step measured. Its tall frame loomed like a shadow, glimmering faintly under the neon reflections. To passers-by, it might have looked like a cloaked mercenary rather than a machine. But Orvin knew that disguise would not last long. Once the council's agents caught even a glimpse of its frame, their cover would vanish. They cut through an abandoned marketplace, where shattered hollow signs flickered faint slogans, advertisements from a decade past. Orvin slowed, scanning the rooftops. His nerves tightened. Silence could be safety, but in this city, silence often meant the trap was already sprung. A faint hum broke through the rain. Then another. Drones, Elian said flatly, eyes narrowing toward the sky. Orvin swore under his breath. He grabbed Naira's hand and pulled her into the skeletal remains of a building. The interior smelled of rust and mildew, broken glass crunching under their boots. Elian followed, positioning itself at the doorway like a sentinel. Through the cracked wall, the glow of searchlights swept across the street. Metallic wings buzzed, and 3 reconnaissance drones descended, beams cutting through the mist. Their voices echoed in mechanical monotone. Target signature detected. Initiating scan. Naira pressed close to Orvin, her eyes wide. They're not alone. Others are coming. She was right. A heavier sound rolled through the district, the grind of armored boots on wet pavement. The council hadn't just sent drones, they had dispatched ground enforcers. Orvin's pulse raced. He'd lived most of his life avoiding trouble, keeping his head down in the Undercity. Now he was responsible not only for Naira, but for the most dangerous fugitive in the spires. Elian turned, voice calm but resolute. They will breach this place within minutes. We must relocate. And go where? Orvin snapped. They've locked the whole district down. Naira tugged his sleeve, urgency bright in her tone. The tunnels. Under the tram lines. I've seen them. They're old, forgotten. Machines don't go there anymore. Orvin studied her face. It wasn't the first time Naira spoke of places she should never have known. Yet doubt was a luxury he could no longer afford. Fine, he said. Lead the way. They slipped through the back of the ruined building, Elian shielding them with its broad frame as searchlights swept dangerously close. Naira darted ahead, small and swift, weaving through debris until she found a rusted grate near the edge of a collapsed tram station. With surprising strength, Elian tore it free, revealing a stairwell spiraling into darkness. They descended quickly, the sound of pursuit echoing above, drones buzzing lower, boots striking pavement. As they reached the tunnel floor, damp air pressed against their lungs, carrying the stale scent of machinery long abandoned. The walls glistened with moisture, and broken power lines dangled like vines. Naira placed her hand against the wall, eyes closing briefly. It's quiet here, she murmured. They don't listen below. Orvin didn't ask what she meant. He simply guided her forward, while Elian's glowing eyes cut through the dark like lanterns. But safety was fragile. From far behind came the faint clang of metal striking stone. Orvin stiffened. Something was moving in the tunnels, following them. They're here already? He whispered. No, Elian said after a pause, scanning the dark. Not council. Different signature. Unregistered. Naira shivered. Then what is it? A low growl rumbled through the passage, metallic yet animalistic. Shapes stirred in the gloom. Feral scavenger drones, machines abandoned by their makers and left to evolve unchecked. Their frames were jagged with rust, their optics glowing a feral red. Scavers, Orvin muttered. Of all the cursed luck. The pack emerged, claws screeching against the tunnel floor as they circled. One leapt, jaws snapping. Elian intercepted, metal fist colliding with the creature's skull in a burst of sparks. The scaver collapsed, twitching violently. Stay behind me, Elian commanded, voice harder than before. Orvin pulled Naira close, his wrench the only weapon at hand. The scavers attacked in waves, shrieking with distorted cries. Elian moved with precision, each strike decisive, crushing limbs, tearing apart circuitry. Yet for every one that fell, another crawled from the shadows. Naira clutched Orvin's arm, whispering urgently. They're afraid, that's why they keep coming. Afraid? Orvin grunted, swinging his wrench at a scaver that got too close. They don't look afraid. But Naira was right in her own way. The scavers were drawn by the presence of something stronger, something they didn't understand. And in that moment, Orvin realized, they weren't just running from the council. The city itself, in its forgotten depths, was against them. Finally, with a final blow, Elian ripped apart the last scaver, its body collapsing in a shower of sparks. The tunnel fell silent again, broken only by the drip of water. Orvin's chest heaved, his hands trembling around the wrench. Naira leaned against him, exhausted but alive. Elian scanned the remains, then spoke in its measured tone. Threat neutralized. But more will come. This place is unstable. Orvin wiped sweat from his brow. Then we keep moving. Those tunnels better lead somewhere, Naira, or we're all dead. She nodded solemnly, pointing deeper into the dark. They lead to the old districts. Beyond the glass spires. That's where the truth is waiting. Orvin didn't know how she could be so sure, but he no longer questioned it. Whatever strange bond Naira had with machines, with memory, with forgotten places, it was guiding them. And now, with the Council's hunters above and scavers at their heels, that guidance was all they had. Together, the three of them pressed on, their shadows stretching long across the damp stone, toward a rebellion none of them yet dared to name. The tunnel spat them out into the underbelly of the city, a maze of steel pillars and old transit rails that stretched like bones beneath the gleaming towers. Here, the air was damp, filled with the low rumble of machinery that still pulsed from the spires above. Orvin Kalis steadied Naira Solan as they climbed out of a rusted hatch, both of them blinking into the faint light. Behind them, Elian emerged, towering and silent, its eyes glowing with that same steady, unblinking hue. From here, the skyline was different. The glass spires, home to the Technarch Council, loomed in the distance, crystalline towers that caught every fragment of light and refracted it like blades. To most, the sight was a symbol of order and power. To Orvin, it was a reminder of the Council's reach, cold, beautiful, and merciless. We can't go near them, Orvin muttered. That's suicide. Naira shook her head slowly. No. That's where the memories are. That's where they're hiding what he saw. She glanced at Elian, whose silent gaze confirmed her instinct. The android spoke with mechanical calm. Council servers detected in Central Spire. Probability, 93%. My data fragments align with architecture schematics. The truth resides there. Orvin swore under his breath. He had spent his life avoiding conflict, surviving in the shadows. Now, somehow, he was walking straight into the jaws of the Council itself. But when he looked at Naira, at her unwavering belief that this mattered, he felt the old weight of his cynicism slipping away. By the time they reached the outer districts beneath the spires, the city was already on alert. Patrol drones skimmed the skies, searchlights cutting through rain, while armored enforcers locked down every visible entry. Orvin led them through back alleys and forgotten stairwells, slipping past scanners by seconds. Twice, Elian intervened, once dismantling a drone midair with silent precision, another time blocking a shot meant for Orvin with its own arm. Each encounter left Orvin both grateful and uneasy. Finally, they reached a service platform that overlooked the lowest bridge leading into the spires. The city stretched beneath them in sheets of glass and metal. Above, the towers rose like frozen lightning, their surfaces glimmering with streams of data running visibly across them, a spectacle meant to remind the Undercity of the Council's eternal vigilance. Naira's voice broke the silence. If we show them what happened, people will rise. They'll see the Council for what it is. Orvin almost laughed at the idea. You think a few fragments of memory will topple the most powerful regime in the system? But Elian spoke before she could answer. Correction. Memories are not fragments. They are proof. Proof spreads faster than fear. Orvin met the android's gaze. For the first time, he wondered if Elian had learned something beyond its programming, something like conviction. They crossed into the spire through a maintenance conduit, crawling through tight passages of humming cables and flickering lights. Orvin's heart pounded with every sound, expecting alarms at any moment. But somehow, whether through Naira's strange intuition or Elian's calculated precision, they remained unseen. At last, they reached the data chamber. It was a cathedral of circuitry, with transparent floors that revealed oceans of streaming code below, and towering crystalline pillars channeling light into the central archive. The hum of servers filled the air like an unending chant. This is it, Orvin whispered. Elian moved to the central console, its hands pressing against the glass interface. Light surged, reacting instantly to its presence. Naira stepped forward, her small fingers brushing the same surface. Together, machine and child bridged a connection no ordinary system could resist. Images burst forth, projected across the chamber walls, clearer now than before. The colony beneath its domes. Families gathered under warm light. The sudden storm of fire as drones descended, slaughtering indiscriminately. And the masked figure of the council's overseer, giving the command. Elimination, no survivors. The truth unveiled itself in merciless detail, playing out before their eyes. Above them, alarms shrieked to life. Security systems had detected the breach. Doors slammed open, and enforcers poured into the chamber, weapons raised. "Kill them!" a commanding voice barked. Energy bolts tore through the air. Orvin dove behind a console, dragging Naira with him. Elian rose to its full height, absorbing fire against its armored frame. With a single motion, it hurled a collapsing pillar down, scattering soldiers. The chamber erupted into chaos. "Get the data out!" Orvin shouted. "Broadcast it!" Naira pressed her hands harder against the console, her veins glowing bright blue as she poured herself into the machine. The servers bent to her will, amplifying the transmission. Across the spires, every screen, every public display, every drone projector flickered to life, showing the massacre, the truth long buried. Citizens froze in the streets, watching their rulers' crimes unfold in raw clarity. The enforcers hesitated. For the first time, doubt cracked their precision. The weight of truth was heavier than the council's orders. Orvin grabbed a fallen rifle, firing back at the remaining soldiers. Elian fought with brutal efficiency, dismantling attackers with each blow. But for every enemy they felled, more surged in. "Naira, now!" Orvin yelled. With a final surge, Naira screamed, and the last of the files burst outward, broadcast complete. She collapsed, drained, into Orvin's arms. The chamber shook as reinforcements arrived. Elian turned to Orvin, its voice calm despite the storm. "Mission accomplished. Protect her." Before Orvin could protest, Elian charged into the oncoming wave, its body a wall of steel and fury. Blasts tore against it, but it pressed forward, buying precious seconds. Orvin carried Naira through the collapsing conduit, his heart a hammer in his chest. Behind him, the chamber blazed with light, and the last thing he heard was Elian's metallic roar as the explosion swallowed everything. When they emerged into the rain-soaked streets below, the world was already changing. Screens across the city still displayed the truth. Crowds gathered, voices rising, anger spreading like wildfire. The glass spires, once untouchable, now trembled beneath the weight of rebellion. Orvin looked at Naira, who stirred weakly in his arms, her eyes fluttering open. "Did it work?" she whispered. He gazed up at the towers, where fires now sparked in protest, and answered softly, "Yes. And nothing will ever be the same." And so, the fight for truth began not with armies, but with a mechanic, a child, and a machine who dared to remember. The city that once shone like crystal now echoed with the roar of its people, awakened by the power of hidden memory. The Technarch Council, long shielded by fear, could not silence what had been shown. Proof was stronger than propaganda, and once revealed, it spread through the districts like wildfire. Orvin Calith had never imagined himself a fighter. He was a man of tools and broken machines, someone who had survived by avoiding notice. Yet fate had placed him at the center of a spark that could topple empires. Naira Solen, fragile yet unyielding, had revealed the hidden strength within herself, bridging worlds of flesh and circuitry with nothing but her strange gift and her will to be heard. And Elian, the soldier who had once followed orders without question, found redemption in sacrifice, proving that even a machine could choose its own purpose. The uprising had only just begun, and the future would demand more than Orvin and Naira thought themselves capable of. But the truth was free now. It could not be buried again. Thank you for watching this retelling. If you enjoyed this journey, make sure to subscribe for more stories like this, like the video to support the channel, and share it with friends who love deep sci-fi tales. Every click helps keep these stories alive, and your support makes all the difference. Until next time, stay curious, stay questioning, and keep exploring the stars.